Okay, so we've gone over the start of the logic blocks here. The compute blocks, sorry. We've done the toggle, the inventory, the ball, the agent trigger, and the logic lamp, which is just an on-off signal here. Now we're going to get into the set of 4 blocks, which I rarely use, I'll be honest with you. They all have their purpose and all have their places. I've just not really found of any use to them for my builds. Maybe that's because I don't make my logic so complicated. I don't know. Or, well, complicated is the wrong word. Maybe in-depth is a better word for that. But the logic set block, the logic pusher block, the counter and number block. These all... I'll show you all 4 of them at the same time and go through each one because it all makes sort of sense. Let's just put one down of each and then I can copy and paste them as required. Counter block and the number block. Now, the logic pusher and set blocks, they have tooltips which explain kind of what they do. The set block sets the value of another logic block without triggering the output, and the pusher triggers another block's output without modifying it. Now, that may seem a little confusing, but it's pretty straightforward when you think about how it works. Let's take a toggle, for instance. Now, a toggle, as we know, has a state of off or on here. And if we were to grab a lamp here and link the 2 together, when we toggle it off or on, it turns the lamp on or off, as you can see. If you select it and change this down here, it changes the toggle without changing the lamp. That's what the pusher and the set block does. The pusher, stop the set block. The set block will change the status of this toggle without pushing it through. So right now, if we set it to true, it's going to be true. Set it to false, it does that. We link these 2 together, and then you need another block to toggle the pusher or the logic block here. So do that. When I toggle that there, you'll see it's changing it from true to false, but it's not setting the lamp off. It will set the lamp off if we do it manually, but doing it here is changing the status without setting the lamp off. So that allows you to change the status of a toggle or of some other logic somewhere. You could change a ball function, I suppose. You could change the actual block itself without triggering anything further along the line. So here, this ball function is toggling on this here, the pusher, but it could also be toggling on some other pusher somewhere. You could then change it to be true, and then it wouldn't actually change any of the ones later down the line. It's a good way to, if something's not set correctly, you could put one of these in place to toggle it to do that. Also, it's a very good way of changing the status of something if it doesn't want to change something later on, but you may want to change it now. Say when a cart goes by, it would toggle whether the cart has gone by. Whether you have an agent trigger, it would toggle whether the cart has gone by, but wouldn't toggle the trigger to go and do something else. So then when the cart goes by next time, it will toggle it the opposite way. So probably better with the toggle here. So if you've got it true and false and true and false, and all of a sudden it's set to true and you need it set to false but without changing something further down the line, without closing a gate or something, you can just use this to toggle it and it will change that without changing something down the line. So it changes the block without changing whatever the block is connected to. The pusher does the exact opposite. The pusher will push through whatever the block status is further without changing the block. So we'll link that together there. I'll unlink those and link that. Now, we have this set true, false, true, false, true, false. So if I set it to false, but then change this logic lamp to be true, we know that's not correct. That logic lamp should be off, but that should be true. To do it with this, we'd have to toggle it on and toggle it off before it would do it. Well, it actually wouldn't do it. We'd actually have to toggle it on and then toggle it off again. So you need 2 toggles to change its status back. Unlinked them by mistake there. So what the pusher does is the pusher will push through its status without changing this. So what it'll do, we'll toggle this, and you see it turns the lamp off without changing that. That's still set to false. Turn that back on and do it again. Boom, there you go. It's pushed through the false status, but hasn't changed the logic lamp. So, or hasn't changed this toggle to be off. It's just pushed through the off status to something else. So if we went a bit mad and went like this, and went dum 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 like so, and link this to every single one of these here, and we wanted to turn them all off, but we don't want to have to turn them on and then off, because these could be linked to something else, some of the lines, and we don't want to enable something by mistake. We could just push through an off function, they will go off. And it doesn't matter how many times we toggle this one here, it will always be off because it's not changing the status here. We could then use this one to change it to being true, but it won't change the blocks here, not until something else happens, and then we toggle through true. Here we go. True, true, true. False, true, doesn't matter. Not until you do it. So the set and the block ones, set changes the status of the block, pusher pushes the status of the block through to the next ones. The counter block and number block are probably supposed to work in unison with each other, or well, work together, I suppose, but the counter block is probably this one. If we link, we'll grab another toggle, link to it. The counter block does what it says on the tin. It counts. Every time it receives a signal, it goes up by one. Bum, 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 bum. Now, the number block is a block that it takes all of its inputs, or takes its inputs and gives you the number of them. That sounds a bit strange, but if I link a toggle to it, it will go 1 0 1 0. That's because off is 0 and 1 is on. But if I unlink that, if I link it to that one, it will mimic this one here. So it's going to go 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, because it's mimicking what it's getting there. And then if I toggle this one here, it's just going to go with 1 and 0 again. It doesn't add them together, it doesn't add all the inputs together, it only gets what it's been told in at once. Now, you can also, I believe, do this the other way around. I know it's still going up by 1 every time, so it doesn't actually reset it. I'm sure there is a way to reset a counter block, and I'm just trying to remember how to do it. Yes, there we go. Right, so if I unlink that there, it was a mistake. Yeah, you see, link that to that one, and then we go 1 0 1 0 there, like that. So that's just toggling 1 and 0 between the two. And I think if I use, say, the pusher onto that one there, we can just push through. That's a bit of a complicated one there, but we push through 0 via the set block, sets this to 0. If we set the number here to, say, 10, for instance, and then push through, it's going to set it to 10. Now, that may seem a bit weird because of the way I've done things here. Let me draw this out a bit better. So, we have our toggle, we have a pusher block, we have a number block, we have a set block, and we have the counter block. Okay. Now, the counter block, as we know, when it receives a signal, it just increases by 1 every time, which can be useful, so you can count how many carts go by. So we could have an agent trigger here. We can link that to there, and we'll link that to number block, and we'll set the number block back to 0, just so it's set to 0. And if we let it go, it's going to trigger 1 2 3, and then again it's going to go 4 5 6, and that's fantastic. So you could count how many carts go by, and you could say, well, if there's 3 carts up to here, don't have the pusher on anymore. You could set some logic up with that. I won't show you that, but that you can do that sort of thing, or you can change things. Also useful for counting how many things have gone by. So if you go, well, how many stone have gone by on this gate here? After so many go by, turn it off. So that could be useful for counting certain things. So if you want, say, well, late game polished stone takes 10 stone, so you could say, well, hey, when 10 stone's gone by on this cart here, stop outputting because it's got 10 stone. Then when it finishes processing, send another 10 stone. If you wanted to stagger things, don't know why you'd want to do that, but you could, that's it. But this system here, which looks a little complicated and could probably be made smaller, I'm no expert on these blocks at all here, but we're going to push through the number 0, and the set block is going to take that number 0 and add it to that counter block here. So when we toggle this here, or at least if I actually link them all together, which would be helpful. There we go. If your logic never works, make sure you link them together. When we toggle this, it's going to reset to 0 and stay at 0. And if I set this to, say, 22, and I set it to 22, then we turn it on, and it's going to start counting up, 23, 24, 25. So, yeah, it's just going to count up all the time, and then every time we fire this here, it will reset back to the number that we set it to. So, set it to 0, reset it to 0, there we go, and then, boom, 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 boom. Very, very useful for counting, particularly good for carts, I find. It could be useful for counting how many carts have gone down a line. So if you've got a line that's quite long, picking up stone at the end and coming back, you could say, well, once 2 carts have gone down here, don't turn on anymore. I don't want any more to that. And the way you do that is with the math block, and we will get to that in a moment. But yeah, but that's all on there. The numbers disappear when you zoom out. That's just, don't worry about it. If you can't see the numbers or anything, it's just zoom in, you'll see them again. Yeah, so the pusher changes a block without pusher pushes a block's status, so either its number if it's a number block, whether it's true or false if it's a toggle block, pushes it through to the next block and that block. So we are pushing 0 through this to there without changing it, and then this is setting the next block to 0 because that's what it's set to. If we were just using a toggle directly on this one here, every time we push through it would increase by 1. So that's how the push and the set blocks work. The number blocks, as I said, they just increase every time they get a signal. Sorry, the counter block increases every time we get a signal. The number block can be set to whatever you want. Number blocks also work with the math block, and I'll get into that in a moment. But that, I think, covers the pusher and the set block. I've never had use for these because, as I said, I don't think I've set up my system to be that sort of way, to require them in any way. My logic isn't as in depth or as in detailed for that. Some people have set it up so it will send stone, for instance, 10 this way, 10 that way, 10 this way, 10 to the left, 10 straight on, 10 right, and they've got 3 different places making polished stone, for instance, because I know that uses 10 stone. So yeah, and it so it's doing things. So it's very, very useful if you want to say, you know, have 10 stone go this way, have 10 stone go that way, 10 go this way, 10 go that way, rather than having the splitter going 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. You could do it that sort of way. So very, very useful in that situation. See, that's counting up quite happily. And this will go to stupid numbers. In fact, I'm not quite sure exactly how far it goes. Yeah, it goes stupid numbers. Well, that's over 65,000, so it's, yeah, 65535. Yeah, it can count above 65535. Okay, so I use that number because that's the computers can count up to 65535 and then go to 1 and then add on to it, or they used to before 64-bit. That's not the point in this video, sorry. Anyway, so yeah, they count up to, I don't know how far, but really, if you've got a counter block that's counting above 1,000 or something, why would you ever need that unless you're just literally counting how many stone did I ever have? I don't know. You might want it stored somewhere. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's that there. So, what's next on our list? Well, next, I suppose, is going to be the math block, which is a block I use an awful lot of, and is next to the ball function, probably my second most used logic block in the game. The math block is a block that allows you to do maths inside Factory Town, essentially. I'd say basic math, but not really. Up here in the top right corner, you have the function and the value. The math function can be add, subtract, multiply, divide, equals, not equals, greater than, greater or equal, less than, less or equal to, and modulo. I will have to look up the exact definition of that. I know what it does, but I don't know the exact definition. Add, minus, multiply, divide, they're pretty obvious. Equals is, again, pretty obvious. Not equals means that it's not going to be the number. Greater than means it is higher than the number. Greater than or equal means it is higher than or the number. There is an important definition, a difference between those two. And less than equal to is greater than. So, if, for instance, we grab a number block, and we set this to being 1, and we link that to the math block, and we grab another number block there, and we link that to that one there, and we grab a toggle. Nope, hold on, you got that wrong. If I was just link a toggle to number block, it would increase every time it receives a signal. So we want a pusher and then a toggle. There we go. So we link these all together, and anyone who has done basic maths will know that 1 plus 1 should equals 2, correct? Let's see. Blump, it equals 2. And it carries on equaling 2 regardless of the toggle. Now, as I said, if I linked the toggle, let me unlink that. If I link the toggle directly to this, it would increase that 1, it would change it between 1 and 0 because it's reading what it's getting in there. So 0 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus 1 is 2. So it's important to use the pusher block in between if you're just doing math or maths with this, depending on where you're in the world. Here in England we say maths, so no, but sometimes I will say math because America creeps in everywhere. Other countries probably say math as well, I don't know, not just singling out the Americans, but yeah. Yeah, and this is actually called a math block, isn't it? It's not a math block, yeah, it's a math block, and I'm not actually sure where Eric is from. He's a European country somewhere. I should know that, and I do know that, and I can't remember it. Give me just a moment. Sorry, I was going to look up where he's actually from because I feel like I should know that, and that's an important piece of information, but not really relevant for this video, and Discord isn't working. So anyway, let's get back to this. So yeah, the math block does this. So if I was to so that plus that equals that. So 1 plus 1 equals that. So what if you want to change these up? What if you want to say, well, I want to know how many carts have gone this way and that way, for instance. That's an interesting sort of way of doing things. So we'll grab 2 agent triggers and we'll go set you to there, and we'll set you to there. Okay. And I'm going to put 2 number blocks down here and link them to that. And you'll see, oh no, sorry, counter blocks. I got that wrong there. There we go. Right, link them up and link that up. And so this is going to count how many carts gone by here, and this is going to count how many carts gone around here. When I add these 2 together, it's not as easy as just putting a math block in the center saying add. You need to figure out how to add this block to that block. You can do it with this, but you need the logic set function. And what you do is you will go that counter block to there, and then that logic set block to there. Okay, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? So we're linking that to the set block and the set block to there. So it's going to take whatever it's getting. So it's going to set this block to equal that block. And because this block has a value and that has a value, it should set that block to 0. I'll put a toggle in there just to trigger it. Not going to do, is it? It's oh, there we go. Yes, yeah, so there you go. So it's adding 4 now, because obviously every time we toggle the trigger, it's thinking a cart's going by. We'll set this to 11, and you see it's set plus to 11. You could change this, you could be times, and it doesn't matter. When you change this, it only changes the value below. So the set block can set the value of a math block, but not the function of it. Okay. So let's grab another set block, and let's link that to that, and link that one to that one. There we go. And when a cart goes by, this will trigger for me straight away. 45, there we go. But you notice this isn't updating. This isn't updating. And it's not updating because it has no idea what's going on with it. So we need to link this logic set block to that pusher. Think. And that one to that one. And that isn't working. We need to set, oh sorry, you need to set one of the agent triggers or both of them to I believe the pusher block is the best way to do this. I think, yes, there we go. The agent triggers actually send the signal going, hey, do something, and then the pusher will push through and we'll add it up. So we get an 87 plus 14 is 104. And if we toggle this one up a couple times, you see it goes up. Let's toggle it to 30, so there we go. So we know this is counting how many carts are going this way, which is 96, and how many carts are going this way, which is technically 0, but obviously we've manually set it to, and it's adding up. So 102 plus 3 is 132. So that's how you can do basic math. You can then use this to go, well, if it gets to a certain amount, change something here. So let me show you that. Let me remove this logic down here, which is turning this pusher on and off. Because we want to activate this pusher and I don't want something else mucking about with it. So we've got this here, which is very staggered, and I should have done this better, but we've got agent trigger, 108, blah, blah, blah. Let me reset these both back to 0. Okay. Right. And what we want to basically do is we want to go, not going to worry about this up here so much. I'm going to leave this in here so we can count total. But what I want to say is I want to grab a math block. And I'll put it down here, and then I'll put also one here, and you'll see one in a moment. We want to say if it is greater than 10, then it's going to receive true. So we're going to link to the pusher, and then we're going to link this set block to... No, sorry, not the set block, because that would set the counter. We want to link this counter block to there. So what this is going to do is every time a cart goes by, it's going to trigger, it's going to go counter block increase by 1. If it's greater than 10, it will turn on the pusher and allow it to go this way. Here we go, there's 3, and then we get 6. And it's still going up here and counting. And it's still working, see here. This hasn't been reset because this hasn't been triggered. Let me trigger that, let's go take that to 1. There we go, now it's set to 12, and now they're going up here. So this is going to trigger and go. So you see, it's still counting up in total up here. What's going on? So we've had 3 go by here because I did one manually, and it's kind of long. And odd enough, you picked up some foam, which is interesting. But because it's higher than 10, it's gone up here. But what if we want to say, well, if more than 10 have gone this way, then what if you want to go and say we have more than 10 go this way, so we want to turn this on here. And then when a cart goes up here, just one cart goes up here, we want to reset this all. We want to reset it back so that it turns that pusher back off again. Well, we can do that with another number block. Sorry, a number block, not a counter block. And we can go with a logic set block, like so. We can go number block to there, U to there. And that will set this back to 0. And it will trigger this here because the set block, the set block sets a value but doesn't trigger. So we don't want the set block, we want actually to link the number block directly to there, and that will reset that to 0. You don't need the set block, it will actually set that to 0 without the set block in between, because we want to actually trigger this to turn this back off again. And we will grab this agent trigger, and we will grab a pusher, because if we push the agent trigger onto the number block, it will increase by 1 a go, I want to say. It shouldn't do because it's a counter block. I think it will just set to 111 permanently, which is not what we want it to set to 0. So we'll grab this agent trigger, which is checking this block here, to the pusher to the number block, and the number block is already linked there. So now, when this cart gets to this point right here on our track, it will trigger this agent trigger, which will trigger the pusher to say, hey, you push your 0 without changing it to the counter block. And it should go, and it doesn't. It increases by 1. Why did it do that? Because I'm an idiot, and we did want the set block. We want to set the counter block. We don't want to increase it by 1. When it receives a signal, the counter block increases by 1. So we actually want to reset it. So we do want to set this to there, and that's to there. Okay, and there we go. There we go. So it went through, and it reset. Because this cart went through here, it reset. And now it's going off here, and it's starting to count again. So we've got 3, and then we're going to go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you will notice as well, 10, but this is still false because we're greater than 10. So it must be 11 or more. If we set this to greater than or equal to, it will actually get to 10 and then trigger. So that's the important differential between those two. Greater than means higher than the number. Greater than equal means higher than and the number. You could just go greater than 9 if you wanted to, but it's important just to know that there is a difference between those two. But yeah, we're now on 12, so this has been pushed on. So we'll push the carts up here. All three will get up here because they're close enough. You will enter this block here. Boom. You've entered the block, triggered this, set this all back to 0. And because you've set that block, it hasn't actually pushed forward onto this one here. So the pusher is still open. That's a small problem. That is a small issue with this is me. We'd have to find a way to get around doing that. We want to set this to 0 and push it through. But it doesn't matter because obviously they go around here, that restarts counting, and boom, it's now set to 0 again. And away we go. So yeah. And that's generally it. I mean, for some bizarre reason, you're not putting your stone inside there. Oh, it's because the rail stop is actually turned off. So yeah, because it's got stone inside. If I was to shut that down and let it run out of stone, that will enable, and then the cart can drop off its stone, and there we go. Happy. So that's added the math block into the function here. That may seem complicated, and that is even complicated to me. I've got to admit, that's the first time I've built a system like this. I've seen them before, I've seen people use them, I know they have a purpose for counting things, but I've never used them, I've never really had to. It, again, would probably be more useful if this was very long, going up here. You'd have a counter going, well, as soon as it gets to 3 minecarts on this counter, because we want 20 minecarts going up there. As soon as it gets to 3, no, we don't want to send any more, because there's 3 already going up here, going to pick up whatever's up here, come all the way back down again, and then go back to the main line. So that's the situation where it would be the most use. Now, the thing is, the math block is also very useful because it can detect inventories, or it can detect an inventory inside something, and do a value based off of that. So I'm going to leave this going here. That can all trigger away doing its thing here. And we have our ball function, everything working here to do it. But let's say, for instance, we actually wanted to, rather than go, well, if there's any stone here, just stop. Say we wanted to go, actually, when you're half full, and we know a silo can take 50, 100 stone. So when you hit 50, we want to turn off this here. So you can fill up halfway and then stop. So to do that, we will actually need a math block. And we can use the math block instead of these not gates on the ball functions, because the math block can use greater than or less than. So there are means and ways around how that's getting here. So if we remove the not gates here and then replace them with math blocks, this is a little confusing because of the spacing I've got here, but yes, a little. I'm going to move that one over by 2, just increase this rail here a bit, and the reason I'm doing that is just so they're both in order. So you can see this is mirrored here. They're both exactly the same things here, because I will add some other stuff over here in a moment and we'll get to it. So let's set this up again. So let's set this to stone and drop off, detect that one there, link to that, and obviously we now want to link to the math block. So we'll link the inventory sensor to the math block and the math block to the rail stop. Game over here, boom, and we will say we want this rail stop to be on if this has got less than 50 in it. So we set the math block to less than, and we set the value to 50. Okay, that makes perfect sense. Now, these won't trigger because the inventory hasn't changed inside there. When a cart goes by that has nothing inside it, I think it triggers the internal storage. Or, if you wanted to, you could put a pusher down, link it to the inventory sensors, and then just control click on it. Pusher with a toggle, because you can't control click on them. And then control click the toggle, and it will just fire them up just to make sure they're all set to the correct setting. So, yeah, and I've just realised I've got that wrong slightly, but the pusher block can be used to do that if you want to. You don't really need to. I mean, you can manually set things here. I don't want the sensor sent to the logic lamp. I want it set to the math block. So the logic lamp will come on depending on whether it's true or false. So right now it's true because there's less than 50 in both of these. So if we get a pusher and a toggle, link the toggle to the pusher, link the pusher to the inventory sensors, and then we toggle the toggle by holding control and clicking, you see it just wakes everything up and sets everything to the status it should be in based on your logic. So yeah, you could have just manually turned on the lights and manually turned off things, but yeah. So that's going to go around and do nothing. You see here, these are triggering because obviously this minecart has nothing inside it, so it's triggering. And these have nothing as well, they're triggering. One stone, one set to water. So if we enable this gate and close that gate there, then you will fill up with stone. And as soon as you get above 50, which is a little way away, it will toggle and turn off the rail stop. He says, hopefully, well, I know this works, I've used it many times before. There we go, boom. It is above 50, it's turned off the rail stop, which would mean, ignoring this down here, any carts that came down with stone in them wouldn't drop off in here, they'd move to the next one. And again, it would wait till this one hits 50, which is never going to do because we've got no stone in it. But the carts would drop off a stone, and then it will go, well, hey, I've got 50 in me. I don't need stone anymore, so turn me off. You could then have this linked to logic elsewhere, going, well, if this is false and this is false, turn the pusher off. We don't need the pusher anymore. So we can do that. We can do that right now. Let's put in a ball function, and we'll set this to leave it on OR, because we want, if any of these are true, we want that to be true. So we'll link the map there, because under 50, this is over 50, so it's false, so this will say false. But this is under 50, but it's true, so it will say true. And if we had a third one, it might be over 50, so it's false. So we'd have two false, one true. But we want the true because we want to turn on this pusher. We want to push it up. Now that's going to get confused with all this logic over here, so I need to unlink you to there. All this logic will still work and it will still start counting and doing things, it just will no longer control this pusher. You see there, we pushed up and we would grab stone if there was any up there, and we bring it down and we drop them off. In fact, we can do that. We can do that, but I don't want to move these because it breaks things. So, yeah, I'd turn that off, going somewhere else, and then I can move this. And then relink it. Because if you remember in my, I think the previous tutorial, if you have an inventory sensor set to a building, then you move the building. The inventory sensor went bananas. I don't know whether it was a one-off thing or whether it's just something in the way it works, but no. Now, we've got 2 grab stone. You're not going to drop off there because you have no need to. This is above 50. But you are going to drop off there, and well, actually this is no longer above 50, but it can't trigger because there's no cart gone by with nothing in. It will only register, I should set this to stone before I get confused with things. It will only register a cart that has no item filter, I believe, or a stone item filter, but it's not obviously triggering because there's nothing going on here. It's not working, so we would need to manually trigger this, and the best way to do that is just to turn on the rail stop, and then you see it triggers because the rail stop is active. So it's triggering, it's going up here, they're going to grab that, you'll drop off 20, you'll drop off 20, and then that's it. There's only 28 in there. We can't grab any more because we've got no more stone. That's got 60 in it, so that's going to false, and that's how I would use math blocks to have a system set up like this. So it would do these things here. You then have maybe a counter block counting how many carts went up it if it was a longer road. So if more than one cart went up here, well, we want to say, hey, don't go up there anymore, stop that. Now the other thing as well is you may want to send a cart up here. Well, for instance, we've got carts here, one set to stone, one set to water, and one set to nothing. We don't want the water cart going up there, there's no point. But really, you wouldn't want to actually set your carts to be a specific thing. You'd want them to all be nothing. You want them to all be the same as a cart, no item filter. Because you may need 100 stone to come down and no water. And if you only had one cart for stone, one cart for water, and one cart for wood, for instance, the stone cart would be going around and around for a while, the water and the plank cart are doing nothing. They're just driving around doing nothing. So really you want to set all your filters to nothing if you can on a rail system. If you're building a rail system that uses this sort of design, you may have a situation where you rather filter them, and that's quite possible. I've done that many times. But we'll set these back to 0. And what we want to do is we actually want to detect whether these carts have got nothing in them to go up there, because there's no cart. If let me show you. I'll let them all go by. We'll grab a rail stop, and we will fill the first one up with the water. We're going to go up here. We're going to come along. Right again. Boom, there we go. And then we're going to delete that rail stop because I only want one cart for the water for this here. So we've got one for the water, and up here is only stone. Let's get rid of that one. We've only got stone up here. So why would the water cart want to go up here? There's no point. This is fine because it's very small, but if you had it going way up into the distance, come back down again, that water cart's going to go all the way up to do nothing, to come all the way down again to get to its destination. Surely if it went straight on, it'd be quicker. It'd be better. There's no point for it going up there. So what you can do is you can say, I only want empty carts to go up. And you do that with a little bit of logic. So we're going to put in another function, and we're going to put a bool function as an AND gate. We'll unlink that bool gate, and we'll link that to that, and that to that. So we know an AND gate requires all of its inputs to be true in order for it to go up. Now you're thinking, how can I detect whether a cart has got anything in its inventory? I'll use an agent trigger. That's what I thought, and it doesn't work, and I don't know why. I don't quite understand why. If I'm honest with you, it should. But an agent trigger set to there with nothing in the filter will and we'll link that to the AND gate there. And with nothing in the filter, will just trigger true all the time because it just detects there is an agent. What we want is the inventory inside there, so that kind of gives it away. We want the inventory sensor. We will link you. Link you to that block there. So when a cart enters this system here, it will detect the inventory and it will go, what's in the inventory? Well, I've got no filter, so I'm looking for anything. If there is something in the filter, I'll report back how many are in that filter. How many are in that inventory, sorry. So we'll grab a math block and we will set this math block equals to 0. And we'll link the inventory sensor to it. So if the inventory sensor detects it's got one plank in it, it will go one plank. This math block will go, nope, I only want equals 0, must be empty. We'll link this to that. So if it's got, say, water in it, for instance, like this one here, you'll see, boom, it triggers false because this is looking for 0, that's got 20 in it. If it had 1 in it, it would still be set false because it hasn't got anything in it. Whereas the next one is empty. It's set to 0. That means it equals 0. Turn that on, turn that pusher on. So they go up there and they come down and they're happy. But this one, not allowed up there. So that's how you do it. An inventory sensor will detect whether an inventory is full or not if you have no filter and it linked to a math block which is set to 0. You could also use less than 1, I suppose, would also work if you wanted to. I have used less than 1 because I think it looks better. Less than 1. See, less than 0 is going to trigger, all these are going to be false because they can't be less than 0. So we'll go less than 1. And then that goes up there and that's true. And I've used that because you'll notice if we go equals 0, it pokes out the ends. It looks odd in my eyes. I'll see it and I'll be like, oh, that doesn't look right. Whereas the less than function doesn't poke out the ends, it just sits nicely inside the block. So, but they're both the same thing. Less than 1 means 0 or minuses. Nothing can have a minus inventory in it. If something did have a minus inventory in it, the game's probably going to scream at you, and you'll know about it pretty soon because something will go wrong. So yeah, so that works. That all fits in places. That all goes there. And I've used this a lot in one of my previous playthroughs where I basically had a train system going, hey, if you're doing this, then do that. Now you will notice here as well, this has all gone wrong because our carts are too close together. Unlike the agent triggers that allow you to go enter or exit, the inventory triggers only, or sensors only do on input. So you need some way to separate your carts out. And that's quite convenient because the next blocks in our system here, our computer blocks, are the signal, the timer, and the delta block. And the timer block is quite important for spreading carts out. So let's start with the top one of the last three, the signal gate. A block that would only pass messages if the gate is open. Use set block to set the gate state. This is something that I don't think I've ever used, along with the delta block. I don't think I've ever used these, not even once. I know what they do and I understand the reason behind them, but I've never known a case for them. Or, well, for this one at least anyway. The signal block is something that will only send a signal through when it's open, which sounds a little strange, but let me show you here. So we have got a logic block, a pusher block, and some bits and pieces here to push through for this toggle here. In fact, let me go off to a different space and do this somewhere else. So we'll get the signal, we'll get the toggle, we'll get the lamp. There we go. Okay. So if we were to go toggle to, well, if we go toggle to lamp, we know that toggling the lamps will change the lamp. But if we go, turn that one off, if we go toggle to signal and then signal to lamp, now this won't work. This is firing, but it won't work. If we change the signal gate to be open, which you can't do manually, you have to use a set block function. So we'll do that and then it's like that. There we go. So you have a toggle to it, so that will turn it off, that will turn it on. Then when you toggle with this one here, it will send the signal through. Be off, on, off, and on. It's basically, think of it as a master cutoff switch. You could have some complicated logic like we've got here. We've got this major logic here, not including that signal gate here, where every time a cart goes through here it counts up, and every time it goes through there it counts up, and this all adds together and yada yada, and yeah, it does all things bits and pieces. But say you, if this was true, you didn't want this to work. You wanted this because this is overriding. So if the push is true, we don't want this to work because we don't want them to count the carts going around here for reasons. I don't know why. You could use a signal gate for that. So we'll put in a signal gate here, and we'll put in the set, and I think that will be okay. We will also need a ball function to invert the set or invert the input. Okay, so we will link the pusher to the ball function to the set, and the set to that there. So every time this pusher comes on, it will invert this to say false. Not doing. So the pusher can't push on. Oh no, of course. So it has to be the ball function that goes onto there. So that will work. So we've got one going to the pusher, one going to this here. So this is triggering now. You see, turning it on and off, on and off. This is going to keep triggering it on because we've got carts going on here, but you'll see here. So we have an agent trigger setting that logic block off, and an agent trigger setting that one. So instead, we would go to the signal gate, and then signal gate to the pusher. And then same for you. Turn you off for there. So these will only trigger if this is true. So this will no longer work. The numbers are going up, but it's not pushing through, so the number block at the end is not actually firing at all. If we were to add in that there, for instance, and then toggle that once, there we go. See, that's because this is an AND gate, we've now forced this to be off because it's going on there. This is now true, so doesn't matter what's happened here, these go through, this toggles, and this fires because this signal gate is open. Switch that to true, this is off, and now because that's true, it's going on there. So yeah, so you can have, you might have a detailed logic down here, a detailed logic up there, but you don't want, you want this logic to fire all the time, but you don't want the logic that's further away to do something if this is true. So you'd have that go through a signal gate. You'd go, if it's true, go for a signal gate. The reason I don't find the point to these signal gates is because you could just use a ball function with the AND on it. You just go, well, if this is true and that is true, then carry on. But I suppose that could be a block halfway through logic somewhere, particularly here if you've got, say, a counter block. Counter lock doesn't give a signal of true or false at all. It just gives a signal. So using the AND function wouldn't work with that. You would have to go through a signal gate. So maybe that's the situation for it. I'm not an expert on this bit here because I have never found a case to use one. So I can't really advise on it. I'll just say it's there. It does block things, and as I said, you can turn it on and off using a set function. And if it's off, it won't let things through. If it's on, it will. Simple as that. I'm going to jump over the timer block and go down to the delta block next. This is another one that I have never used. Receive values will be stored, but only sent if it's different than the last stored value. Excuse me, I have hiccups. This is one that confused me for a very long time because I was just like, why would it be of any use? But I think the reason it could be of use would be where you've got something which fires true very often and then fires false every now and then, I suppose. So you could have a delta block there. Let's reset this counter block to 0. And oh, that's the wrong way around. We want to go the AND function to that and that to there. So every time this fires true, the delta block is just going to take it and go, okay. But then when it fires false, it'll go, oh, send that on, and the counter block will tick. So it will only tick when it changes. The bit that I don't get is that then, because the last signal was false, when it becomes true again, it will fire again. So if you get a true, false, true, that's 2. From the true to the false is 1, and the false to the true is another 1. So I don't understand its reasoning, if that makes sense. See, it fired twice. Well, it fired 3 times there, and it will do so again, I think. Or it fires twice because we're getting 2 trues and 1 false. So if you keep telling it true, or you keep giving it a number, for instance, say these blocks here, the counter blocks say 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, it will just go, okay, 3, 3, 3, 3, that's fine. As soon as it gets a 4, it will go, hey, trigger, send it off. So as soon as the signal is different to the previous one, it will trigger. If the signal is the same as the previous one, it won't. Again, I don't really know where this is of use. I suppose it does have uses, I just simply can't see it. I've never had a use for it at all. The only situation I think of is with these counter blocks, or the number blocks. Maybe somewhere you're checking how many items are going through something and counting up, and you don't want to trigger some logic somewhere if it's just at the same value. You want to trigger it if it changes value. But I don't see where the delta block's more useful than a math block with a less or more than option. I just don't. It's another block that I don't understand, and there are probably people far smarter than me on Discord that know exactly where the delta block and where the signal gate is stupidly useful. Signal gate I can see, but the delta block is one I just don't understand. That's my problem with it. I don't understand it. Doesn't mean it's not useful. It could be fantastically useful. I just don't understand it. However, the final block, which is the second one from the last, I thought I'd skip over that one because the timer block is one that I do understand and I have used in places before. Will store any value received and output after a specific time has passed. It can be used to pass numbers on to other things, so you could use it to pass on like that 247. I could wait for a second before passing it on, so that could be useful. But the way I use it is for a timing gate to spread out carts, and that was the problem we had here. We've got 3 carts pushed together, and it's not very useful. We need to separate these carts out. So what I'm going to do is not push G. I keep doing that. I don't know why. I'm going to put down a timer here. In fact, I'm going to put down 2 of them, and you'll see why in just a moment. See, this one is set to 1, and this one is set to 1. So what we want to do is we want to set one of these to 2 seconds, and another one of these to, I think 0.2 was the correct number here. 0.2 is the correct number for what I'm going to do here with a barrier gate. So what we want to do is, when a minecart appears here, in this block here, we want to put the barrier gate, we want to have the barrier gate go down, have the timer start. The barrier gate's going to be down from the beginning. Have the timer start. After 2 seconds, we want to open the barrier gate, and then 0.2 seconds later, we want to close it. And we can do that with a toggle and with an inventory, agent trigger. Boom. So we set the agent trigger to be this block here, because this is the one we want to go. So when an agent enters, it's going to toggle the timer. So we want to link to the timer, and we also want to link to the toggle block. Hold on, I'm just thinking whether that's correct. I don't know. We don't want to link to the toggle block. No. The toggle wants to be linked to the barrier gate. Okay, and the timer gets linked to the toggle, and the long timer gets linked to the small timer, and the small timer also gets linked to the toggle. So what will happen here is a cart will come and enter this block here. This will trigger a 2-second timer. 2 seconds later, it will toggle this toggle to being true because it's currently false, which will open the gate. 0.2 seconds after that, this will trigger, toggling this back to false, which will shut the gate. And that will spread out our carts by 2 seconds each. You can change this time to whatever you want. I think 0.2 is the correct time to let a cart through. Let's give it a try and find out here. So there we go. They're getting stuck there. This timer is now on 2 seconds. It toggles, it opens, closes. No, it's too short, so it's 0.5 seconds. Half a second, 0.5. Okay, and we have to re-trigger that ourselves. There we go. There we go. See how that works? Bump, bump. And that is now holding our carts closed for 2 seconds. Holding our carts here for 2 seconds. And you'll see the carts now that are empty are going up, and this cart here that has water in it is going forward because it's false. And all 3 are no longer going up. It's just a very good way of separating out carts. So, as I said, go over that again. When a cart enters this square here, this detects a cart entering and goes, hey, set this timer. This timer goes, okay, in 2 seconds I will trigger, and I will trigger the toggle and the small timer. The toggle will open the gate because it goes from false to true, and then half a second later this one triggers, which then changes the toggle from true back to false, which closes the gate. So that's it. You do have to do this with the toggle. You can't just link them directly to it because they will just fire true all the time and keep the gate open all the time. It does require 4 logic blocks to do. It can probably be done smaller than this. The easiest way, if you don't have logic blocks to separate out the timers, to separate out carts, it's actually just to use a ramp. We go up here and then down here, like so. What we can do is we can just remove that block and that block. In structure blocks, you can just go scaffold ramp up, scaffold ramp down, and put a rail over the top of it. That will also spread carts out. That will get, because carts lose more speed going uphill than they gain going down, so they'll slow down, and it will take them, say, 1.5 seconds to reach the top, and then a second to get down. So they'll lose half a second every time they go over that. That's not the exact numbers, I don't know the exact numbers, but that's the principle of it. They lose more speed going up than down. So if you don't have logic blocks and you need to separate your carts out, or compute blocks, sorry, that's the easiest way to do it. Just put in a little ramp like that, and it'll be fine. I've used that quite a bit to do with it. But if you want specific timing, I could just left that in there, but didn't. Anyway, if you want specific timing, for instance, we could actually set this to going, well, hey, actually, we want 10 seconds between our carts. If you've got a very long rail and a very long thing to do, we want 10 seconds. So you're now going to wait 10 seconds before this opens. See all our carts line up here, and 10 seconds later, that opens and closes again, and then it'll wait another 10 seconds. That can spread carts out a very long way. Really, you want at least 2-second gap between them, so all these logic pushers and things like that can have time to activate and do things they need to do, but it's quite useful. Another thing you can do here is you can also have carts wait at stations for a certain time. So let's say, for instance, we want to this silo is not full, it's getting things in slowly over time. We want to have a cart come here and we want to wait for the cart, say we want to have it stay here for 5 seconds. Okay, so we'll do that. We'll put in a block, we'll put in the toggle, put in the agent trigger, and we'll put in the 2 timers. So, and it's getting a little complicated here, so hopefully you can still see exactly what's going on here. Let me pause this before I get confused with everything. You link to there. You are going to be set to 2 seconds. Well, we'll set it to 5 seconds. Set to 5 seconds. Well, not 56. That's a long time. And this one we're going to set to 0.5, which is half a second. So, agent trigger toggles the long time one. The long time toggles the toggle and the short timer block, and then the short time block toggles the toggle back again. So, yeah. And that won't work because this agent trigger has never triggered to go. So that will now hold a cart here for 5 seconds, and then we'll let it go. Yep. Boom. And this one down here, we'll just drop this back down to 2 just to get our carts moving. So yeah, that's holding it there for 5 seconds. So if there was any more goods coming into this silo, it would wait for 5 seconds. But you might also want to say, well, it's fine holding it there for 5 seconds, but what if this is full? What's the point? If the minecart is full with 20 resources, it should also go, shouldn't it? Well, yeah. Okay, let's do that. This is where logic gets very, very small. We want to put in a ball function, and we want to put in an inventory sensor, and we want to put in a math block. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 logic blocks for this one station. This is where logic can get complicated, especially if you don't spread it out or know what you're doing there. I've got blocks all over the place here. I'm sorry if this is a little confusing to see, but just know we're dealing with these 7 blocks here. So what we want to do is we want the ball function to be at an OR gate. So if it gets any signal that's true, it will be true. We'll unlink the toggle from there, and we will change the toggle to the OR gate and that to there. And that will still work, ignoring these 2 here. This will still trigger absolutely fine. And open and close, and that will work absolutely perfectly well. But what we want to do is we want to say, well, hey, if we set this inventory sensor to here, and we go, we want to detect, you will have to set up what it's detecting. So in this case, it's going to be stone. And we say if it's equal to 20, which we know is the maximum a cart can take, but then we want to toggle this because the cart is full and it can go. And we can test this. We can test this quite easily now. So if I open this up here, close this one down here. Should work. There we go. So we've got 17 in here now. 17 in this block here. I'm going to move this one, and I know it's going to break my logic somewhere else, but this is just for an example. So we'll move this. In fact, I'm going to let that minecart go. Come on, off you go. Come. There we go. Right. And then we're going to put this down here. It doesn't matter which way the arrow is facing when you've got a rail top. So what's going to happen is you've got 17 inside you. I should have really done more than that now I think about it. Yeah, hold on just a moment. Let me actually do more than 17. We want to put in more than 1 cart worth. So 28. There we go. 28. Okay. Don't know why I'm putting that there just to fill it up, but open. There we go. Let them through. Right. We'll move this down to here. Now, even though I've manually opened that gate, this will all still trigger at some point and close that gate. He says, hopefully. There we go. Boom. Close the gate. So now what's going to happen is this car is going to come along, come up here because he's allowed to. He's going to stop at this gate here and he's going to grab 20 of these. And because he's grabbed 20, this is going to trigger, because this is an OR gate, it will be, well, if that's true, which it won't be, or this is true, which it will be, open the gate. So hopefully he'll go up here, he'll grab the stuff. It didn't work. Why didn't it work? It didn't work because I didn't link the inventory center to that there. So that was foolish. That was very, very foolish. Luckily, we can fix that. So move that to there. Do that. Rail stop so it fills up there. And let you go. And boom, you've dropped off all your goods. Awesome. Right. So we link the inventory center to the math block, and then the math block to that there. So the inventory center will pass on its information. That is a common thing that I've done a lot, is that I build all the logic and I go, well, why isn't it working? Because you've forgotten one link, or you made a link the wrong way. The math block to the inventory center will not work. It has to be from the inventory center to the math block. And again, I'm going to toggle that and let that cart go. Okay, so now what will happen? Take two. This cart will come along, come up here, get to this train station here, and once it hits this rail stop, it will go, I've got 20 inside me because, close that gate again, because I've got 20, and then this will all trigger and let it go. I am thinking I'm going to actually grab that cart and just knock it back a little bit. Give this time to fire. Hope this is fire, otherwise this is going to open at some point and we really don't want it to open. There we go. So it toggled, it did its old open close thing, so that's fine. Okay, because it would have opened and closed at some point because the timer was off, because I'd already triggered it at one point. He goes here, boom, he's got 20 in him. Because he's got 20, this is true, that becomes true, let's open the gate, let's go. Now the gate will close automatically once the timer pops up. This does mean if another cart comes along within that time, it will skip it and carry on. You could add more logic to this to actually go, hey, close that gate. Well, actually, we could do that really easily. We can say math block, go to ball function, and also go to mini time block, which will then close the gate again afterwards. So let's do that. Let's try that if that works. So we'll move that to there. We will grab you, move you to there. You can go, and you won't go up that path there because you're not empty. Because this logic back here says you're not allowed to do that. I'm going to move you. I'm going to move you off the tracks for the minute, so you're not on the track. So there we go. Right. Boom, 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 boom. Something went wrong there. Something wrong. Oh yes, yeah. No, I see what went wrong there. Setting that to the timer duration won't work because this will trigger regardless of whether it's true or false. It will send a signal through. Although it shouldn't have done. Now I think about that. Okay, so you are saying equals 20 is false, but you're still sending a signal to that math block there, which is throwing everything off. So, okay, so you'd have to add another agent trigger in, maybe, to close this system, I suppose. But what, as I said, what we'll see here is we will see this go up, grab, I've got 20, let's go back down again, yada yada yada. I will drop off my stone into here. This is toggled, but for some bizarre reason is now closed. I've somehow managed to link the ball function to the... Oh no, I should have linked the ball function to that. My logic does not work. Something is broken here. What have I done wrong? This is still registering as true, even though there's nothing on the station. Which is interesting. It shouldn't be registering as true. It should be registering as false. because there's no longer anything here. How strange. How very strange. I'm not really sure why. I suppose because the last one that came through was true, so the gate is now open. And of course you're still registering true because that is true. Right, hold on. I think this logic does work and I've just misinterpreted what I needed to do here. So we'll drop that off there, you'll stop, and then obviously you'll be on. There, you've got 8 in you. Oh, I did not want to do that. Hold on. Let's drop that off there. Okay, so you're good. You'll trigger in 5 seconds and you'll go bump, bump, and there we go. Okay, and this is set to false. Right. So if we do this now, what should happen is this cart will go along. It'll come up to this rail stop up here. He'll pick up 8, but because he's not at 20, he'll wait, hopefully waiting for more resources to come along. 5 seconds later, this will open and he'll trigger along and away he goes. And a drop of his goods here, and then everything will be awesome. Now, if we are to swap these two back around again, then in theory, what should happen now is this cart will go through, pick up 20, because there's 20 in here, and will instantly move forward, which he does. He instantly moves forward. And then 5 seconds later, this should toggle, open and close, but it stays open. That's fine, because now when he comes up this time, it's going to close, because as soon as he enters the block, it's going to detect you don't have 20 stone in you. So now I'll close because it's there. So the gate will remain open till another cart comes along. Don't have to worry about closing the gate again afterwards. And that's where I was getting confused with that. And I'm kind of glad that happened because I thought this was all going to work first time, and I'm glad it didn't. So you can see my process of doing things there. Sometimes you have to kind of have faith that it's going to work and then let it go a couple of times to see it. Because if it just doesn't work the first time, you try and tweak something, it might just be that you need to wait for the next cart to come along to try it. I would very highly recommend, if you're going to muck about with logic, you can see this is a complete mess here, but if you're going to muck about with logic on these things here, try and do it away from your main build. Do it in a creative world like I've done here. Try and get it and try and perfect it and get what you want to get. And then once you've figured out exactly what you want to do, you can build it in your world and have it in there. The timer blocks especially, you'll find that you'll change the time. I mean, 2 seconds I said is good, but you'll change the time depending on how many carts you've got on the track or how many offshoots you've got, because here we've got one offshoot, so it's only going to get stone. If we had another one for water and another one for planks, for instance, then all 3 trains might end up back together again by the time they come out. So you might put in a second gate at the end of all its stop-offs so they're not spread out. But really you only need the gate before any logic that pushes a train along a different track. So if it's going to be pushing it off the main track, you want to make sure they're separated out by at least one block. At least one block, which is why 2 seconds comes in, because that separates them out by many blocks. So yeah, so that will trigger 5 seconds later, and away it goes, and it will drop off that one there, and now it's going to be stuck in his hole. Got there, wait for 5 seconds, carry on, because there's no more stone. In a previous version of the game, timers didn't remember whether they were ticking or not. Now it saves their state, so you don't have to worry about any of these time blocks going wrong. If any of you watched my series, I think season 2 of it, you'll notice that I had a time block set up to spread my trains out, and every time I reloaded the game, it kept breaking on me, and I couldn't figure out why. It was simply because the timers didn't remember they were ticking. Now they do, so you don't have to worry about it. But yeah, as you can see here, ignoring this counting logic because that's not important, we've got logic set up here to detect whether these have got stone in or whether they want stone or not. We have got logic here to then push a cart up here if they need stone, which they currently do, so it is saying yeah, got there. We've got logic to detect whether these carts are empty or whether they have something in. If they have something in, don't do it, let it go. If they don't have something in, go up and grab that, so it will work for empty carts. And we have logic here at a station saying, hey, if there isn't enough to fill a cart up, wait just for 5 seconds before you go, because there might be more coming down the line and might be worth you hanging around for a little bit. So, like in real life, a train pulls up to a station, sits there and waits for all the people to get on, and the conductor goes, well, all the people are on, let's go. Or if they're ahead of schedule, they might go, well, actually, we'll wait for 5 minutes because that's what it is. We'll wait for a bit and then we'll go later. So it basically waits for anything to come along there. Or if it is full, with this other set on the side of it, if it is full, it will just trigger it and let it go straight away. So there's no waiting if you have the resources. So yeah. Hopefully that makes sense to you. I do apologise about the delta block and the signal gate. I think the signal gate's okay, I've explained what it does, but the delta block I just don't get, so I apologise about that. If you do understand the delta block, please do put in the comments below how it works and give me an example, and I would love to learn how it works. Right now Discord is broken, it won't log in, so I can't ask anybody on the Discord server, but I will do that as soon as I get Discord working. The wiki page has wonderful things on logic. Doesn't really cover anything in depth on the advanced one here, but yeah, I mean, it covers a lot of the logic and counting blocks. Delta block I couldn't find much information on. Maybe I'm just being blind, I don't know. But yeah, that is compute blocks. I hope that you've enjoyed this and this makes sense. Don't ever put a cart going around on the track, it will break everything. If it goes the wrong way, two trains will just hit each other and stop. So yeah, don't do that. That really confuses the life out of the game. But yeah, hopefully that has made some sense to you. Hopefully this garbled mess here does make some sense and you understand what's going on with it. My very terrible example over here, and my little example here, which was my intro thing, just two trains doing things, and yeah. So I hope you've enjoyed this one. I hope to see you again next time, and until then, as always, have fun.